A simple look at what the evidence shows. When a stranger with no training in history, archaeology, or genetics walks into the tombs, temples, and pyramids of ancient Egypt, the first thing they notice is not DNA charts or academic theories. It is the faces on the walls, the painted skin tones, the hairstyles, the broad noses, and the African features staring back from thousands of years ago. That is the ancient Egyptians speaking for themselves. They carved their identity into stone, into statues, into papyrus. They left behind their own mirror. Logic says, when a people depict themselves, that is who they were. Now let's pause and make a crucial distinction. Ancient Egyptians, the civilization that built the pyramids, ruled dynasties and left behind temples and tombs thousands of years ago. Modern Egyptians, the diverse people who today live in Egypt, shaped by centuries of Arab conquest, Greek settlement, Roman occupation, Ottoman rule, and global mixing. No one denies modern Egypt is a mix of many peoples, but this should not erase who the ancient Egyptians were. The two groups are not the same, just as modern Italians are not identical to the Romans or modern Mexicans not identical to the Maya. So why is there so much argument? Because some DNA tests of a handful of mummies claim ancient Egyptians were closer to the Near East than sub-Saharan Africa. But logic asks, how can a few decayed samples from one location outweigh the thousands of images the Egyptians made of themselves across 3 millennia? If someone today painted their family portrait, would you ignore it and instead trust a broken, incomplete test of their remains? Here's another problem. DNA does not exist outside of politics. Results can be selected, interpreted, or emphasized to fit an agenda. For Arabs and Mediterraneans, linking ancient Egypt to the Levant or Europe strengthens a shared identity and prestige. For Afrocentrists, the depictions and context clearly place Egypt within Africa. Both sides have interests, but the Egyptians themselves left no confusion in their art. They portrayed themselves as African. Now consider the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Their stories often describe Egyptians as villains, Pharaoh as a tyrant, Egypt as a place of slavery or punishment. If the ancient Egyptians were Africans, then these stories have painted African people as the villains of salvation history. That carries implications because it shifts blame and moral judgment onto a whole race for the benefit of others in the story. Was this fair, or was it convenient? Logic again. If the stories are true, why do the Egyptians' own walls tell a different story? A story of kingship, gods, and a proud civilization that saw itself as divine, not cursed. If the stories are exaggerated or shaped by later writers, then perhaps the Egyptians were turned into villains to give another people a heroic role. So the question becomes simple. Do we trust the ancient Egyptians' own hands, their art, their culture, their continuity in Africa? Or do we trust selective DNA studies influenced by modern politics and limited samples that contradict what the Egyptians said about themselves? For the ordinary person without access to labs or universities, the answer is clear. Walk into a tomb, look at the paintings. The ancient Egyptians left no doubt. They were African.